Information is starting to leak out in the cracks of this Sonya Massey story. Information is starting to leak out in the cracks of this Sonya Massey story.
It was an incident that happened earlier that day, and I talked to 2 officers or whatever, and I believe that it's the same officer that my mother.
Now, Brenda Butterfield is the grandmother-in-law to this piece of shit that Sonya Massey, Sean Grayson, and she wrote this editorial.
Thus, the Sonya Massey issue has become even more intricate. Sonya's son also made a shocking revelation. He claimed that the police officer who killed his mother had knowledge of her mental health condition. I apologize, that fact alone changes everything. Sonya's mother also disclosed that the police were aware of her mental health condition, but they still decided to use aggressive force. Looking more like a setup, and given that Sean's girlfriend and Sonya seem to have known each other, there may be some truth to it. After all, the only reason Sean had a job was because his girlfriend's father had gotten him a job, which means Isabel has the power in the relationship, and if Sonya did something to annoy Sean, he might have taken matters into his own hands. Are people really onto something here? Or did Sean really barge in? Let's find out whether the cops set Sonya up inside that house using a sinister strategy.
So we gonna stay abreast of this, but this is just a theory. We gonna update y'all as it go, but it seemed fishy to me that she didn't have clothes on and something was going on outside her house.
The day Sonya called 911 to report an intruder in the home wasn't the first time she had called the police. They were aware of everything you saw. Authorities evidently, Sonya's home had made many emergency calls in the days before the tragic event. In one of the calls, it was around 9:00 a.m.
Sonya's mother, Donna Massey, reported to the police that her daughter was having a mental breakdown and that she didn't want any of you to injure her.
Sonya was shouting in the streets, and according to Donna, when she gets agitated, she believes that everyone is chasing her in a psychotic manner. Not only is Donna schizophrenic, but it also appears that she was aware of the potential issues and was concerned for her infant daughter's safety. For this reason, she made a specific request to the authorities not to dispatch a biased officer in a subsequent call, where a woman who wished to remain anonymous claimed that people intended to harm her. A day later, Sonya began reporting a neighbor who had struck her with a brick, but a sheriff's deputy answered and countered her ad. The hospital, since she had gone there to receive medical treatment, after the call she told the officer the same story about the neighbor, and that she had also broken a window. In an attempt to get into the car to get away, Sonya also alerted the officer that she had recently been released from a mental health facility, and that earlier that day, I apologize for the specifics, a police officer tried to drive her off the road. This is where it happened. Sonya's son enters the room and observes that her family has been devoted to exposing the truth. They have been conducting press conferences for Sonya and recently engaged in a sit-down in front of the cameras. Malachi Hill Massey, Sonya's son, made some intriguing remarks. He said that on the day of the event, there had been another 911 call. 2 cops had been to their house due to an altercation, and he thought Sean had also been there.
Only other thing, Malachi, you may want to tell them is you think law enforcement came there earlier that day.
Okay, it was an incident that happened earlier that day, and I talked to 2 officers or whatever, and I believe that it's the same officer that shot my mother. I talked to his partner first, then the second officer, that's the one that I think the one that did that. I talked to them, and they told me that because she was driving herself to the hospital or something. She wasn't even at the house when this was going on, but she was driving herself to the hospital. They told me that they were going to go there to help her, and then this happens.
And the internet is shaking about this. Sean was aware of Sonya's mental health issues if he had visited the residence earlier, so it would indicate that he was still acting aggressively. Did Sonya actually set up? Let me clarify that this isn't the first time the theory has Sonya's father, James Wilburn, said in an interview with CBS Morning that he was unaware that his unfortunate daughter had been carried out by a police officer and that the authorities had informed him that an intruder was responsible for the assault.
You know, I'm hearing that you were told conflicting stories. What were you told, the circumstances of this?
Well, I was never told that it was a deputy-involved shooting. We were under the impression that she was killed by the intruder or some other person from the street or something, and they just went in there and found her dead body. I did not find out that the deputies killed her until my brother asked for Sonya's address, and I gave it to him. And he said, "Brother, this says deputies involved." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
In fact, there was a tale of Sonya torturing herself. Nevertheless, it was the body cam film that brought everything to light and was the most heartbreaking thing we had ever seen. But we would not have realized that this had happened if it weren't for the body cam film. Additionally, Sonya's father suggested that her daughter may have known what was about to happen.
She had said to the officer, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus," which seemed to set him off. What do you think she meant? What does that mean? What was going on that you think that she would say those words to him?
I think that she feared for her life. There was some premonition that she had. And it seems like he's just an emissary of Satan.
Speaking of body cam video, you should know that Sean turned it off throughout the encounter. His partner's body cam film ultimately revealed the truth, so it's possible that Sean turned it off because he was attempting to hide something. Hide his footprints. Was it not, as we have been led to believe thus far, a random, senseless act of violence? Well, based on the information that has surfaced thus far, it appears so. One person even said that he called her a crazy B-word because he knew her from the previous day. If you think that's a stretch, wait until you learn about the hidden connection between Sonya and Sean's girlfriend. You heard correctly, Sean's girlfriend was acquainted with Sonya. Isabel Butterfield is Sean's fiancée girlfriend. Apparently, she was set to tie the knot with Grayson in October of this year, but given the course of events, she would be delaying that anyhow. According to ground reports, she ran into Sonya at the mental health treatment facility she used to visit, and guess who else worked there? Isabel Butterfield.
I started doing some digging and I realized y'all said that Sonya had on a hospital bracelet. I looked up the closest place where she could have got medical care to her house, an 8-minute drive away, and guess what we ended up at? Capital Community Health Center.
And here's where the hypotheses begin. Sonya wore her hospital bracelet when she died away, and many believe that she was receiving treatment at the health center before the tragedy, but something went wrong. Sonya and Isabel, which caused Sonya to hasten home.
Could it possibly be that the police actually, especially Sean Grayson, who I'm talking about, actually caused the situation in the backyard, and then they took the call, which is why she didn't even have a chance to get clothes on? Because if I heard something in the driveway, wouldn't you automatically get dressed and at least try to be prepared just in case they try to come in the house?
An abundance of people seem to believe that there is definitely something suspicious about the circumstances. When she opened the door and said, "Don't hurt me," someone said, "You may be on to something." Meanwhile, someone else said, why was she on the phone with 911 dispatch the entire time until Grayson told her to put the phone down? Then she requested her Bible. She knew he was serious about this. Though it's all up in the air, many believe that the police should investigate the typical response time in the area and seize response time on the day of the incident. If it turns out that everything was planned, does that mean his partner was also involved? In any case, this only heightened suspicions about Sean Grayson, and one thing that infuriated people was his dubious employment history. After Sean's name made headlines, many people were naturally curious to learn everything there was to know about him. You won't believe what they discovered, though. It seems that when Sean applied to be a police officer, his hiring was based on a reference from his girlfriend's father, who was able to obtain Grayson's personnel files through the Freedom of Information Act and the beneficiary designation, along with his emergency contact information part, caught people's attention. He put down the name of his girlfriend, and on the references for hiring he put down the name of her father, aka his father-in-law Scott Butterfield, who is a former sheriff's deputy, according to a Facebook post by the Sheriff's Office of Sangamon County. Up to 2020, Scott handed up his badge after 30 years of service, yet it seems that his word is still respected. Sean helped him get a job. How could they have rejected him when he subsequently left such a positive 5-star review? Westwood, the investigator on Grayson, claimed that Mr. Butterfield informed him that Grayson is now seeing his daughter. Mr. Butterfield characterizes Grayson as a calm, non-aggressive individual with strong communication abilities. Mr. Butterfield strongly suggests that Mr. Grayson be hired by the Sangamon County Office of the Sheriff. Meanwhile, Grayson's personnel file included references from individuals I know well, according to Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell. As a result, the question is, did everyone choose to disregard the warning flags just because Grayson had a legitimate reference? Because you can see the caution indicators were there. Before becoming a police officer at the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office, which is 6 years old, Sean worked at 5 other law enforcement organizations. You're telling me that the Army believed Sean wasn't competent enough to perform his job, but the police force conducted a psychological evaluation of him on May 31, 2023, and found that he was fit to serve. He also had 2 drunk driving convictions within a year on his record. In fact, one of these convictions was the reason he was prematurely discharged from the Army. Sheriff Campbell claimed he was unaware of any problems at Sean's previous workplaces, but records obtained by WCIA appear to indicate otherwise. Sean was reportedly investigated twice for his behavior while he was employed. According to the report, Sean knows he can move too fast at times and needs to slow down to make good decisions. However, guess what Sean never showed up? Was working at the Logan County Sheriff's Office. In fact, his superior had written about Sean defying instructions while being pursued at a fast pace.